IPR coordinator student. She'll rejoin because I guess she's having some internet issues. So we were not able to hear her. So I have told her on WhatsApp to rejoin. So let's wait for a couple of minutes. Once she rejoins, we will start the session.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. Yeah, hello, Radha.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, now you are audible. You are audible. You can start. You can start.
Can I? Okay. Good morning, Krishnan, ma'am.
Good morning.
Okay.
Good afternoon.
So we actually, but so shall we, ma'am?
Yes, sure.
The man is keeping an idea to himself, I say it's stilling. But once a man has revealed his idea to others, it is no longer his alone. It belongs to the world. Said by Linda Supak. A very warm good afternoon to one and all present here. I, Radha Safle, student IPR coordinator of Institutions Innovation Council, Srimati Kashibai Navle College of Pharmacy, extend a warm welcome to our chief guest, Ms. Head, Piramal Global Pharma Mumbai, Dr. Sanjay Sawant Sir, Principal and President, IIC SKNCOP, all the faculty members and my dear colleagues. Well said by Linda Supak, the idea in mind is one's own property. This property is termed as intellectual property. Intellectual property refers to creations of the mind such as inventions, literary and artistic works, designs and symbols, names and images used in commerce. IP enable people to earn recognition or financial benefit from they invent or create. So to throw the light on the issue identifying intellectual property component at the early stage of innovation, we are fortunate to have Ms. Sridevi Krishnan ma'am, who is expertise in concerned area. Now, I would like to request our IPR activity coordinator, Dr. Aishwarya Deshmukh ma'am, to present the preamble. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you, Radha. And actually, sir was going to give welcome address, but since he is not there, so I'll be welcoming you, ma'am, on behalf of Principal Sir and Srimati Kashibai Navle College of Pharmacy, Pune. A very warm welcome to you and thank you very much for sparing your precious and valuable time, and I would really appreciate because you have accepted our invitation in a very short notice time, so thank you so much. uh, Now, good afternoon and a warm welcome to all, including today's speaker. Already Radha has given ma'am's introduction. Ms. Sridevi Krishnan ma'am, she is General Manager and Head of IP Department, IP Corporate Department, Piramal Global Pharma Mumbai. Um, Actually, since I am here to give the preamble about since the topic is regarding different components of the IPR and how we can recognize those components at a very early stage of the innovation. First of all, it is very important, to understand what innovation is. So innovation is the crucial to the development and deployment of technologies. Now, if you see the technology, it is built on the concept of technology life cycle, which has different stages, right from the invention through research development dissemination to market development and lastly the commercial diffusion. So there are these different processes which occur at each stage of the life cycle, providing various opportunities to employ instruments that can promote the innovation. And one of the important instrument is IPR. So basically IPR refers broadly to the ownership of intellectual findings in the industrial, scientific, literary and artistic fields and grants the inventors certain exclusive rights over their creations. So it encourages creative activity for the benefit of the society by affording inventors fair returns from their investments. And out of many components, one of the most important component of IPR is patent. So patent plays a very prominent role in the entire technology life cycle. If I tell you in a nutshell, intellectual property serves as the foundation of innovation in any country's economy. We are fortunate enough to have Ms. Sridevi Krishnan ma'am. She'll be talking about the concept of IPR, what are the different components of the IPR, and she will also accentuate in context to the final year or MPharm students the importance of identification of the vital components in the early stage of innovation in the pharmaceutical setup. So, thank you so much, ma'am, once again for sparing the time. And I would request you to take the charge. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Aishwarya, for that wonderful introduction. And Radha, you also. Am I audible to all of you?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah? Okay.
You are. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Ma'am,
Thank you.
Krishna, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
Yeah.
I would request Radha to read your CV in brief.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. I'm privileged to introduce the today's speaker, Ms. Sridevi Krishnan. Ma'am is currently working as General Manager and Head in-house Patent Attorney in Piramal Global Pharma, Mumbai. She is research scientist in medicinal chemistry for more than 10 years. She is highly experienced in patent-related and legal matters pertaining to various functions businesses such as API intermediates, API drug substances, formulation, drug products, new chemical entities, herbal, medical devices, critical care, OTC products, and glass. She has expertise in advising on IP strategy and providing sustainable end-to-end solution to facilitate evaluation and development of patentable and non-infringing opportunities in different business areas aligned with the respective business strategies. She holds master's degree in organic chemistry. She also has degree of law with 4 goals. She is a certified Indian patent agent and she holds diploma in patents law international business development, and she is also excellent entrepreneur graduate in house leadership. She is recognized for being featured in top 100 IP leaders of India 2018 by Version in 2019. She received Niti Aayog Award for Excellent Leadership in Field of Patents 2020. Along with, she is recipient of IDMA Team Award 2016-17, Best Use of IP in Innovation Team Award 2019, Transform IP Gem of India 2018-2019 Questel. She was invited speaker in academic forums, for instance, National Conference on Academia, Industry Collaboration Opportunities and Challenges. I wholeheartedly welcome Ms. Devi Krishnan ma'am on behalf of all SKNCOP. I request ma'am to take charge. Welcome ma'am.
Thank you, Radha. Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. It's always a pleasure to be in the academic circle. I have long left academic circle. It feels really nice to be back with all of you. And I want to first thank Principal Sir, respected Principal Sir, and all the members of the faculty, also the students for giving the time to and giving this wonderful opportunity for me to interact with all of you. Let's make it an extremely interactive session, and you can post in your questions, you can ask the questions, and I'm looking forward to a wonderful, maybe about 1 hour or 1.5 hours maximum uh, time with you all. And let's see how we can cover. It's a very vast subject that we have in front of us. but let's see how we can, make the most of the next hour. Okay. So with all that, having said that, let me, and also I wanted to specially thank Dr. Vandana and Dr. Aishwarya for coordinating this entire e-session. It was a lot of follow-ups they have done and a lot of work, hard work put in. Thank you both so much. So having said that, let's begin. Shall I share my screen, Dr. Aishwarya, Dr. Vandana?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Sure.
Okay. Is my screen visible?
Yes, ma'am. It is visible.
Okay. So this is the topic that was uh, given allotted, that is identifying the intellectual property component at the early stage of innovation. So what instead of getting right to the point, let us look into a few concepts, a few basics that will be required to understand how you will identify IP components early and at different stages of innovation. So a very short and brief. I know that you all are mostly aware about IPR, but it just a little, maybe about 15 minutes or so on the basics before we actually get into the crux of the whole thing. Okay. So this will be the coverage for my today's talk. Initially, we'll deal with IPR, particularly with special reference to patents and to innovations. And in the second part, we'll have actual examples from pharmaceutical setup, from the pharmaceutical industry space, and we'll see how certain companies have built in patent portfolios very successfully by timing their patent granting process, by getting patents in the right time, matching with different innovation, different stages of innovation. So that's a few examples we will see in the second part. So initially, let's touch on a few basics. So the first part of the talk will be on IPR, patents and innovations. So basically, what do we mean by intellectual property rights? So you can break up this term. One is intellectual because they are creations of the human intellect, right? It is something that you have ideation, you have made inventions, or you have made innovations. So it is creations of your mind. So it is an intellectual. So the word intellectual justifies that part. Why is it called property? Because other than being intangible, property is always tangible, but other than being intangible, if you compare the properties of these creations with property, you will find that they are very similar. That is, they have a valuation, they have an economic value, right? You can assign it, you can transfer your property in the same way you can transfer your intellectual property in the form of licenses or assignments. You can give it away for value. You can even mortgage it and take loans, right? So various companies do that. They mortgage their IP in the sense intellectual property, and get loans for carrying out further R&D work. So that is why it is termed as intellectual property. Now, why rights? So these are legal rights. Just like in a property, you will not have anyone trespassing your property, right? So in the same way, in your intellectual property, you have rights, not allowing anybody else to steal your invention, to take away your invention, or to sell your invention as their own, right? So the rights which you get because of your creation of your intellectual mind, they are called IPR, or intellectual property rights. They are negative rights in the sense, with these rights, you can prevent others from Note what are those activities: making, using, selling, offering for sale, and importing your invention. So these are the things which you can prevent others from doing. All right. So these are legal rights. So when I say legal rights, means they are enforceable. Enforceable means what? Basically, you can sue somebody who is stealing away your rights, or who is making your own product, or who is selling it. You have a right to sue them. So you can enforce your right. So that person will have to pay you back damages, or he has to give you an account of profit made. So in this way, you can enforce your right, right? So this is what is intellectual property rights. Specifically, I've taken it word-wise and explained why each term exists in that term, right? So this is what is IPR. Now, when you look at the types of IPR, these are the many types of IPR which you all must be already familiar with. So let's look at patents. When I say patents, they are for inventions. They are intellectual property rights made for inventions and innovations. This is the most important, particularly to those in pharmaceutical domain. This is the most important form of IPR. Trademarks. Trademarks are the logos or the word marks which any manufacturer or trader, he will use on his product to distinguish his goods and services, to say that this is mine. So this is the kind of product which I am giving of this particular quality. So by looking at the trademark, you know, you can identify who is the trader, who has made it. So that is used for branding purpose. So trademarks in the pharmaceutical domain, where they will come more when you intend to market your product. There it will make more relevance, right? The third thing is copyrights. Copyrights, what do you mean by copyrights? Basically, these are IPR which is granted for literary works or artistic works, right? So in the pharmaceutical domain, they may have less relevance, but when you have product information brochures, or you have leaflets, or you have some websites created for your product, right? Any kind of labeled information, you could copyright that. So there it will make relevance. Again, it comes more in the marketing time, right? Not in the in creating the innovation or the invention time. It's more of a marketing kind of IPR that you need to give focus to at that time. Further, you have geographical indications. Geographical indications are basically the kind of, where you can identify a particular quality and attribute it to a specific source. For example, if I say Nagpur oranges, so then I know that the oranges of Nagpur, so that's a geographical indication giving that this is the quality of my product. It's attributed to a source, right? So geographical indication is generally applied to by the like trusts, like Tirupati Trust had applied for the geographical indication for the laddu, and that laddu, the quality is attributed to coming from Tirupati. So the source is what is indicated by the geographical indication with a quality attached to that source, right? Then the next is the industrial designs. Industrial designs means it's the appearance or the look or the kind of a design that you have. It could be what is an industrial design in the sense of does it mean that that particular thing was created for the first time? No. You could have a glass bottle, right, which is already existing, but a specific design of the glass bottle is what you will be protecting it through a design patent, right? And last is trade secrets, which strictly speaking is not an intellectual property right. Okay. It is where you keep your information confidential and do not basically reveal the details out. And that way you protect your information till maybe it is time to file a patent application. So for some time you may protect it like a trade secret. Sometimes you can protect it forever, but it is very risky because it can be easily leaked or stolen by someone and you lose it. Then somebody else, if they steal it and file a patent application, you cannot do it because you don't have proof to say that it's yours, right? So when you look at all this, basically, copyrights is for literary, artistic works, for sound recordings, for those kind of things, right? Whereas when you look at industrial property, you will get the IPR of patents, the trademarks, right? Industrial designs, the trade secrets, the geographical indication. Now, from the do you think geographical indications will feature for inventions and innovations? No. Geographical indication will not come within the sphere of pharmaceutical inventions. So it is basically, we have to see the rest. Copyrights to certain extent, trademarks to certain extent, both of them coming during the marketing phase only. But you have patents, very relevant. Before even starting with patents, trade secrets, yes, and creation of industrial designs as and when appropriate. When you have something new as a fresh design, you could basically go in for a design patent. And the difference is a patent is given a term of 20 years protection. Your rights, you have the right to prevent others from copying your invention or making, using, selling, offering for sale, or importing your invention for 20 years from the date of filing. Trademarks, it is a period of 10 years and then renewable. Every 10 years, you can go on renewing. Patent is not renewable. It is renewable up every year up to 20 years. After that, it lapses, it expires and becomes generic. It becomes common to use for everyone. Trademarks, what happens in trademarks? For 10 years, you have a life, then you have to renew by payment of fees, and you can go on renewing every 10 years. For copyrights, it is the life of the author who has created that particular literary or artistic work, and 60 years more. That is the term of a copyright, not extendable further. Geographical indication, like trademark, 10 years, renewable every time by payment of fees. Industrial design, 15 years, not renewable, 15 years total. Trade secrets is not a protected form of IPR, right? It is a trade secret as long as it is there with you. The moment it is leaked, it's no longer a trade secret. It's unfortunate, right? So is everyone with me? Sometimes, you get a doubt when you are. Uh,
No, we are with you, ma'am.
yeah, okay. The slides are also visible, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, okay,
Yes.
thanks. Now, coming to, as I said, the most important, most relevant form of IPR is patents, right? So when you say patents, do you think a patent is for a discovery or invention? It is only for inventions, okay? So you may discover a new microorganism already existing in nature. Can you patent that? No. Anything which is already existing, you cannot patent that, right? It is for, there should be a degree of human intervention in creating that invention or innovation. That only can basically uh, be patented. All right. So, like stars and planets which already existed, you can't patent them just because you found a new planet. It was already existing, right? So, that's the difference between a discovery and invention. Patents are only for inventions where there is human intervention. Yes, microorganisms which have been, there is a human intervention and you have made some genetic modification and created a microorganism. Yes, that is patentable, right? Plants and seeds also, seeds and varieties. If you have some genetic modification, there is a human intervention, then it is patentable. Otherwise, it is not. Anything which is naturally occurring just by discovering does not qualify it for a patent. So when I say patent, what do I mean by a patent? See, patent is nothing but a document. Actually, it's a legal document which is given to you by the government of a country where you have applied for. So if I apply in US for a patent and I get it, then the US government gives me that document, right? It's a legal document which gives me certain rights. It creates a legal situation wherein that invention for which I have been awarded a patent, it can only be exploited, that is manufactured, used, sold, imported, only with the authorization of the owner of the patent. Means anybody wants to use that, they have to first seek a license from me or an assignment from me. You know the difference between licensing and assignment, right? Licenses, you're giving some rights of usage, but ownership you're maintaining with you. It's like giving your home on rent, right? But when you talk about assignment, it is like selling your invention completely at a cost, whatever cost you both decide, purchaser and seller, and you give it away completely. The ownership is given away. That is assigning. That's the difference between licensing and assigning. It is equal to renting your home to someone or selling your home. That's the basic equation of the two, right? And when I say that I have a patent granted, please note patent applications are always filed till it is granted. You should call it strictly as a patent application. And when it gets granted, then you should call it as a patent. Okay? Then when you look at a patent document, there are different sections in the patent. The, the section which defines your rights is the last part of the document, which is called as the claims part. So we claim or I claim and or claims, and then there'll be 1, 2, 3, 4. So those are different uh, the different parts of the invention which you are claiming to have a right on, for which anybody will have to seek your authorization, your permission, your license, your assignment to carry out that inventions, which are written within the claims. Okay. Patent is granted only for an invention, not for discoveries, as we had already said. And yes, it will help you to monopolize your product in the market. Now, another point is it is a territorial right. This is the most important thing that you need to understand, that an patent which I have got granted in India will give me rights only in India, right? But this patent will not be enough to protect my same similar rights in the US or in the Europe. So you need to have a similar patent existing in the country where you need to have your rights. So patent is a territorial right. All right. So whenever you create any innovation, you got to think territorially. Where do you want your rights to exist? And you should ensure that within certain timelines that are framed, you are supposed to file your patent application in all those countries of interest. Your missing out any country will immediately mean that your invention is anyway in the domain protected in some countries, but not in some country. There will be always somebody ready to take out your invention and do it in the country, actually sell it in the country where you have not filed your patent application. So if that thing sells there, you have no legal basis to stop someone in those countries where you have not filed your patent application, right? So there is a freedom to operate for those others with your invention in the countries where you failed to protect your patent, with your invention through a patent. Okay. So as I said, it is a negative right to exclude others from all these points. Fine. And why are patents basically given? Basically, it is because someone has created some invention using his intellect, and he should be rewarded in such a way that for some time on the market, he should enjoy being the only one to sell it, and he should try to get back the costs which he spent for doing the R&D. So he is giving an opportunity to him to sell alone and get the cost back before it gets genericized at the end of 20 years and others start selling the same thing. Then his price will fall because of the large amount of supply, right? The demand will be the same, that will get divided. So people will start buying for lower prices. So the cost will definitely fall when at the end of the patent term. So, but at least he is given that time to try to recoup his cost that he have spent during the development of the product, right? So why do you need patents? Yes, suppose you were asked to do only innovation and inventions and you were not given any patents and you're not given an inventorship on it, I think you will be very discouraged because you don't get anything else. So basically it encourages the innovation and the inventors, right? Yes, it is an indicator of technological advancement. If I need to know whether X company, how good they are, right? I will always go and check out what kind of patents they have, both quantity and quality. That gives me an idea about how much advanced a specific company is, right? Same way about any institute also. The same way, as I said before, they can be assigned, licensed, or mortgaged like property. Patents cause branding and goodwill. It gives you an idea about an organization or a company, how good their technological advancement, how good their inventions, or how good their thinking is. Yes, the most importantly, in particularly for pharmaceutical companies like us, when I will also, even if I'm not doing a specific technology, I will try to create patents to put blocks in my competitors' way, right? I will try to stifle their activities so that I can have a better market for myself. So I will try to put patents in so that the others, competitors, like myself who are doing similar things, they will find roadblocks in their path. So that is also one important thing that patents do. Also, if you do not patent a specific technology, if you think that it's fine, I won't do it, there is a very big chance that it may leak out, it may go out. Somebody out there may create a patent application and get a patent granted, and you did not do it in time. And then you will be stopped from doing your own invention because there is a patent of someone else, right? Yes, there is a way you may go and show your date of your journals, but it becomes it's quite difficult, very difficult at that time. So it's better to always protect your inventions in time, right? Again, I said it is giving you an opportunity to recoup costs of R&D because you will be the only one on the market at that time, right? And yes, it gives a period of exclusive marketing, as I said, and cross licensing opportunities. What do I mean by cross licensing opportunities? Suppose I'm making, say, a drug, okay? I have a patent on the drug also. But in the process of making, I'm using a reagent, a very specialized reagent, which another company owns a patent for. So I cannot do my invention unless that company allows me, gives me a license to prepare that particular reagent, right? So I will go to him for a license. So there can be a possibility of sharing your patents to one another, licensing, cross licensing the patents to one another, and then you decide by means of an agreement how you are going to share your profits mutually amongst yourself. So this is a great opportunity for trade in which different companies can, collaborate with one another. That helps in being very progressive. Now, coming to now, like what you all are going to do about that is how do you decide what stage the you need to identify your intellectual property and maybe file patent applications or any other form of IP you got to consider. So for a patent, is it that anything you do, you can just go and file a patent application at the uh, patent trademark office? No, it's not like that. You got to do some evaluation at your end also. Basically, what is the criteria that will make your invention qualify for the patent is three things. Novelty, whatever you are doing as an invention should be new. What do I mean by it should be new? Prior to the date of your patent application, it should not have been published by someone in some document, or it should not be something that there has been an oral disclosure and it is so common knowledge, or it is some common use that everybody knows about, right? Then it will not deem to have a novelty. Same way, when I say it should have inventive step or it should not be obvious, it should not be like you make an invention, okay, and say one document somewhere says that A is equal to B, and another document says that B is equal to C, and then you come up with saying A is equal to C, and then you think this is my invention. No, from the information which is given in document D1 and in the document D2, if I put the information together, then I will have this invention of A being equal to C. So it should not be an obvious conclusion from two or more documents. So remember, novelty, single disclosure, single document. Inventive step, two or more documents put together, making it obvious. That's the basic difference in the two. And the third is every invention should have utility, right? Then only it qualifies for a patent. I make a wonderful structure of a molecule. I try to apply for a patent application. You'll not be getting it unless you give some utility to it, where it's going to be used as an intermediate, then as an intermediate. But some use should be there. For what? So that intermediate for what you need to define it in the claims of your patent application. So not everything will qualify for a patent application. These are the criteria that you need to meet. Okay. Should we, is there any questions so far? Is there anything that anybody would want to ask?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, tell me, dear.
Ma'am, a question is that you already told that means the patent get expires after 20 years.
Right?
So how to funds protect that intellect in innovation process?
Yeah, we'll come to that. We'll come to that. It will be 20 years from the date of filing of your patent application. Okay. Not date from grant. The day you apply for your patent application, when it gets granted, after it gets granted, you have to keep paying for continuing the patent, right? But its 20-year term is counted from the date of filing of your patent application, not from the date of grant. Okay, so you will already lose about maybe 3 to 5 years in the process of getting the grant. So you will be left with only about maybe 16 to 17 years, right? I think it's
Okay,
clear,
ma'am.
the time, the
Yes, ma'am.
duration of the patent. But now let us see how you can basically use this at different stages of your pharmaceutical inventions. For that, we will also see the difference between invention and innovation and then proceed ahead. So this is what I was just talking to you about being novel. That is all prior art, which is existing till that date, is what is you need to check on to make sure that you're not inventing something that already exists. It should be new. So whenever you want to start on your innovation process, please note the first step for identifying new patent application potentially is that your whatever you're doing should be a new thing. It should not be already existing. That is the first thing. All right. So the question arises, how will you know it is new or not? What is the method to come to know if what you are doing is new or it is already existing? So this slide explains it. There are some databases like SciFinder, STN, many other, Integrity, ChemSpider. SciFinder is an excellent tool. STN helps you to search more broader. When you have a generalized structure, then STN helps. It's called Markush structures. We'll come to that. So these are the databases where you can put your word or you can put your structure and you can search. And you will get hits coming out from the database. You will get the different kinds of lists of hits you will get. Then you should analyze them, and then you will come to know whether to what extent your invention is already known or it is not existing, it is novel per se. You will come to know through these searching that you do. So this is the always first step of any innovation, invention is searching an idea and searching. This is the basic step first. Creation of some idea in your mind, and then you search it, and then you go to enable it, right? So searching is step one everywhere. After the ideation, of course. You should have an idea which you want to search, right? And then you may get some, you'll get some publications, journal references, and you will get non-journal references, that is like patents. So patents, you may go into these kind of databases like SpaceNet, USPTO, WIPO. These are free databases. And there are some databases which are paid, like Orbit, Patsia, Derwent, Cortelis, IPD Analytics. They are paid databases. So you can get information from this based on whether you want to go with the free database where you don't pay for your subscriptions, and paid databases, you pay for it. There's more information given in paid databases. You can do a lot of, statistical kind of graphical work you can do. You can do there are a lot of tools there by which you can handle very huge data in a very easy, convenient manner. That's why those databases are paid. Okay. So obviousness, as I said, it is from two or more references. If suppose you find that the information is there in two or more references, if you put together, then a person of ordinary skill in the art, it is not anybody. Obviousness is measured with respect to a person of ordinary skill in the art, right? He should have a basic understanding of that subject, right? So it is with reference to him whether that difference between the documents would have been, it would have been revealed to him. He could predict such an invention, right? So when you're assessing whether this is obvious or not, you have to look at the differences between the prior art and what you are trying to do. Look at the differences and then think that will this be obvious to a person of ordinary skill in the art or not? You have to. So obviousness is something which is subject to argument. In the sense, if an examiner tells you this is obvious to me, you can put your legal arguments and maybe you can make him change his mind. Okay. But novelty, it has to be absolute. Novelty is there is a disclosure, it is not novel. There is no disclosure, it is novel. So that novelty, it should be absolute. It is not subject to interpretation. But obviousness, deciding whether it is having a obvious look or not, then that is subject to interpretation. What is obvious to you, to me, may not be obvious to you. So something like that. So basic criteria, you try to at least establish novelty and then go ahead with your idea. Obviousness can, follow. So when you plan your innovations or your inventions, look for per se novelty in step one first. Okay. That is the most important thing that you should be satisfied before you build on your idea. Yes, this is an important slide. Okay. What is the meaning of innovation and what are the steps involved? This is mainly to do with the topic that that we are discussing. See, I'll tell you a very simple way of looking at it. When I tell you invention is something very radical in the sense there is a disease and I make a drug first time, that is a radical invention. A tablet. I create a tablet for a new first time, a new API. I think you know what's an API, right? Active pharmaceutical ingredient, the actual drug substance. And when it is made into a tablet or a syrup, then that becomes a formulation which contains the API, right? So when I'm doing first time API and I make a formulation and I give it for a disease, that's an invention, a big invention. Invention is always a big thing, right? But suppose now, for example, there is a tablet existing and it is very difficult for the child or an adult to swallow because of the size. So what you do, the same thing, you make it in the form of a syrup. So is it that you have invented the drug again? No, it's the same API. You have only changed the dosage form. You have changed it. So here, this kind of change is innovation, right? So invention versus innovation. Innovation is what will make the product commercially viable, reachable to the market. Radical innovation, I would call it. That is making, say, a tablet into a syrup, making something palatable. Maybe it is so bad to taste that the patient compliance is not there. So what you do, you add flavors and it becomes very like palatable, and then it becomes acceptable to the patient. This converting from 0 to 10, where, it has really undergone a change and now it is acceptable to the patient. So you have given something, you have added a value to that. You have given an efficient way of doing something. It is an improvement, right? So that would amount to an innovation, right? Or suppose there is something that the patient has to keep on taking so many tablets. It's painful to go on taking tablets. So you create another dosage which is bigger and which encompasses 2, 3 doses. So that he doesn't have to go through the pain of, consuming that many tablets. So you change the dosage in such a way that with one he's done. Or suppose in past there used to be this prednisone where the patient had to take the drug in the middle of the night. So he has to wake up, and that is the most painful thing, I think, to wake up in the middle of the night and take your drug. So you can improve his life. How? Making a drug which is extended release. So just before going to bed, he will take the tablet. Then when he goes and he sleeps, after 4 hours, the drug release begins. So it is planned that way. It is designed that way that the drug will release after 4 hours. And 4 hours, that is the time when, I think it is meant for arthritis and for this kind of inflammatory disorders. So inflammatory disorder is mostly because the cytokine, the emitting of cytokines in the body is more. They start getting excreted more in the body at that time during that morning hours of 3, 4. That is why the patient gets more pain at that time in the joints. So when the drug is targeted that it will release at that time, so he is, peacefully sleeping and he does not feel the pain also. So this is some way by which you're doing an improvement in his life, in his quality of life. So innovation is basically how you are offering commercially viable products, right? Or you're offering efficient ways of doing things. That is what is the improvement innovation. Innovation is always an improvement over an invention in very short and easy, simple way of looking at it, right? So coming to uh, steps in the process of innovation, you have the conception of innovative ideas as step one. Then it goes into R&D stage. Then it goes into the commercialization stage. And then it goes into the marketing of those products or services. These are the 4 steps that you will find in innovation. Now, the main point that you need to take from here is that in the pharmaceutical space, you need not always only target huge inventions. You can also target innovations, which are improvements, right? And you could still apply for patent applications during that process also. So, like what I said, changing the taste, making it palatable, extended release, changing the dosage type, making a tablet into a syrup, making combination drugs, right? You know that two drugs are already known for a particular disease, but when you put them together, you're getting a better effect. You found that out, right? So that becomes eligible for a patent application. Suppose each of them, the drugs, when combined, are producing only their respective effects, that will not qualify for a patent application. But if you put them together and you're getting a synergism, that is, you're getting a higher effect, right? Then, yes, that qualifies for a patent application. And that's an example of an innovation where you have just combined two known things, but you got an unexpected or a much better result because of the combination. Okay. Now, coming to the steps in the process of innovation. So, when you're having the idea, innovative idea, at that time, what are the things that you need to think from the IP point of view? From intellectual property point of view, what are the points of interest, of relevance that you need to keep in mind? So, in this stage one of your entire process of innovation, you will have to focus on prior art searching mainly. And why are you going to do this prior art searching? As we already said, already seen, one is to ascertain that somebody else has not already done this. Correct? See, there are two things. You don't want to repeat, you don't want to reinvent the wheel again and again, right? You need to do new things. Also, if someone else has a patent on it, and if you are doing something which falls in the scope of their claim, that patent owner can sue you for infringement also. So then you will have to pay heavily for infringing that patent. So there are several reasons why you do prior art searches. One is to ensure that you are not infringing someone else's work already. That is one. Secondly, what is it? Yes, you want to find out if your idea is new. Not only new, is it patentable, right? You want to look for that also. Third, what else could be the reason for searching? You want to know that your idea is definitely for giving a solution for some problem existing there, right? Now, there may be already solutions by others. They are your competitors. So you want to see what are all the solutions, which may be different, but for the same problem. So if there are already solutions, you have to give a thought. Why would someone, when you go ahead and market your uh, product, whatever it is, for that problem, why would anyone leave the existing product and buy your product, right? You got to think that also. You got to make it. If you want that it should go to commercialization, which I believe is the definitely the need for every organization, that you want to go right from ideation right up to the marketing stage. So why would anyone buy your product when there's already existing something else? So you got to make out your distinct advantages of your product, right? You should also have some kind of a forecast in mind in the sense of pricing versus the timing. So this much time I will take for ideation. Then this is the time I will R&D, I will develop it. This is now when I commercialize. This year I will commercialize. Then assuming that it reaches a high, and then this is the height I will get. So there are people who can help you forecast it. Business development team and yourself, the R&D team, sit together and make that kind of a plan for the future. Then when do you think that it will decline, the sales will decline? When is your patent, if at all you have one, when is it going to expire? Usually after that it's going to generalize, the price is going to fall. So you have to plan this at the time of conception if you want to go ahead and get your idea into a product with a patent, right? So this is what you will have to consider, all these points at the start. It is good to consider all this at the initial stage. Take at least some quality time and discuss this, brainstorm it before you commence on the work for your idea. Now, many times it happens, mostly in academic institutes, that many of them are eager to have publication and early. It is not good to have your idea published unless and until you have a patent application, more preferably when the patent application is published in the public domain, then you can go and get a journal kind of publication or make a disclosure in some exhibition or in some seminar. So till then, it is not advised to disclose your ideas to everyone, because it can easily be developed on by someone else and who gets, speeds up compared to you and reaches there before you do. Then your years of work may, you may lose it. So be very careful on that one aspect about publishing what you are doing. So then the question is, the moment I think about something, should I straight away go and file a patent application? No, it won't work. For even if you want to file a provisional patent application so that you protect your priority date, right? The date by which you determine this is the date in which my idea was conceived by me, so that anybody else coming in, that's the warning, this is my date. So provisional application gives you a priority date. Even for that, you should have enough proof of concept. It should not be just an idea. There should be some degree to show that this is a workable idea. Minimum, but a minimum degree of experimentation and a minimum concept should be there for even a provisional patent application. So then it can't happen on day one. You have an idea, you're doing searches, and there'll be time, some time by which you have something ready, right, to file a patent application. So till then, what do you do with that? Yes, you have to keep it as a trade secret. You have no other go. And that is the most dangerous time, when your invention is developing, but you have not protected it as yet, right? But you can't protect it because you have to reach a certain stage to file. And you have to keep a trade secret. But there are, people who are moving from between companies. There are people moving between organizations. People, there is iteration, that is, people keep moving, so the ideas go with the people. So that's the danger of getting your ideas across. It may get leaked. In that case, what you need to do is you need to build on your NDAs, your non disclosure agreement, and your employee contracts should be very robust with very proper clauses to protect. But even then, it is not so easy to protect your ideas. So you should speed up your process of innovation and go quickly for the patent filing. See, patent filing, there is two things. If you're too early, you may not enable your experiments well, right? You need enablement. If there is no enablement, you don't get it granted. So there should be an enablement. Somebody who is working your patent, reading your procedure, he should be able to get the same results what you're getting. So you should have enough time for all that experimentation for filing the patent application. Provisional doesn't require great detailing, but after provisional, you have only 1 year wherein you can complete it. So in that 1 year, you've got to complete all what you want to do. That is why it becomes difficult to very early file on your patent application. And if you get late, there is a danger that this idea has gone somewhere. Someone has luckily, worked on it, got a head start before you, and he goes ahead with a patent application before you. So your work is lost there. So it is not a question of early or late. It is the apt timing which is important. The apt timing. You have to be very, very alert, diligent. Don't go slow. Keep it as confidential in the minimum circle as possible within the organization or the institution. And when you have enough data, go and file the provisional, secure your priority date, and then work in that 1 year to meet the deadline of having maximum enabling data to file the complete. If you don't file a complete application, the non-provisional in 1 year, the provisional is never uh, published. So you will lose your invention. right? So in this stage of conception of innovative ideas, the lookout is the searching and making your idea, clear whether you want to do it or not with respect to the competition present, the pricing, the idea, this kind of thing. There's a lot of thinking that needs to be done in this stage of conception of innovative ideas. Then comes the stage of R&D stage. What will you be doing in R&D? Yes, you have reached a certain stage. Initially, here also you will have to still keep it as a trade secret for some time. And then you reach a stage when your invention is showing up, in the experiments are working and all that, and then you file your patent application. All the filing of patent applications happen in this stage of R&D stage. And not only one, you should file layers and layers of patents. So it is like, you should build up on the patent portfolio, which is what I will show you how other companies have done. How early, what they thought first, then how they went into next idea, and how they have built a whole lot of, and it's the whole thing together protects actually the entire technology gets protected very well. So this is what happens in the R&D stage, wherein you have to build on your patent portfolio, right? Then comes the stage of commercialization of product or services. So commercialization, I mean the date when you start thinking of entering into the market. So at this time, what is the focus that should be there? There may be some more incremental innovations happening still, and you may still be filing few patent applications. But here at this stage, what you need to do more is to try to partner with someone, because if you have enough money of your own, it's fine. But generally, for commercialization, you may partner with others who have like-mindedness and who have similar interests, right? Enter into agreements with them, and they will fund part of your thing and you will fund part of it, and together you reach the market. So you should seek partners for commercialization. Generally academics will seek the industry for the help in commercialization of products. So this is what happens here. The partnerships happen, and during the partnerships, you will have agreements between the two parties. And these agreements should clearly spell out all the IP requirement, who will own the IP, any further patents, who will own it, whether it is A or B, and or it's going to be co-owned. So all this should be very clearly put down in the agreements, right? And some amount of patent filing happens at this stage. And the last stage is the marketing. The marketing is the branding, creating goodwill. So at this stage, it is not normally patents that will help you. Here it will be trademarks, where you will brand your products, right? You will copyright the product brochures, the websites, uh, leaflets, product informations, any kind of write-ups that you're having could be copyrighted. There could be designs for maybe a special shape of tablet or a special kind of vial or container. So you can have these other kind of IP components come into the picture more at the marketing stage, whereas patents are maximum at the R&D stage and to certain extent in the commercialization stage. Maybe this gives a very clear idea, particularly with reference to the topic today, and we'll go more in detail from here, right? So I hope you all are with me. With me? Yes, are you
Yes,
all with
yes,
me? Okay.
yes.
Yeah, please tell me. Any comment, any question? We can go ahead. Can we go ahead?
Hello.
Hello, students. Do you have any questions?
This was a very important part which I just took. So if anybody has questions, particularly the 4 stages of innovation, what you need to do at each stage from an IP angle, from an R&D angle, from a BD angle, right? From the trademarks point of view, other patents and trademark point of view, copyright point of view, where they come into the picture. This was the most important part. And then we will go into looking at, what are the type of innovations that you could possibly think about early. Shall I proceed? Shall I go ahead? I'm audible, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, Sridevi, you
Yes,
can go
ma'am, you
ahead.
are
I think there
audible.
are no questions.
Okay, fine. Thank you. So here I just put in, a kind of a short table, like how you will think basically. So initially you have started thinking and then you realize this tablet is so big, I need to convert it into a syrup. There is a market need, right? That you can have a good market because of converting a dosage form, say. So there is a market need, yes. So do you have the technology in-house to do it? Suppose it is yes. Then you go further here, right? And say you go to file a patent application when you are ready, right? I'm going from here to here. Can you see the cursor, right? And then it goes into the normal prosecution, granting, enforcement of the patent. So the technology in-house, if you have, you can go ahead, get some, at a particular stage where you are novel and non-obvious and utility and you have done it, you can file a patent application and it goes further for its normal course. You don't have the technology in-house, you can in-license the technology from someone, right? I particularly put this slide for you all because in academics, many times it happens that the industry comes to academics for doing a specific technology because we do not want to really invest in that kind of a lab, right? So you could possibly do this. We in license this from you, right? Then go ahead and invent, create the new patent applications, which will again go in for the same procedure, wherein here there will be some kind of a collaboration between two different companies or between two academic institutes or between one academic institute and one industrial organization, where the IP clauses will be defined as to who will own it, right? So all that will be done. And in case now, suppose you start inventing on something, okay, there was a market need, so you went into inventing it for selling it. But by the time you invented and you became ready with it, suppose that market need went away. Suppose for some reason that say there was a some kind of a disease and you invented, you came up with vaccine, and then that disease died off. I mean, there was no need for the vaccine. Say, I'm giving an example. It is not bearing any resemblance to any current situation. Okay, so just in case that need is not there anymore. Say, for example, can I request everyone to mute their mic, please? Yeah, thank you, thank you. So in case that future need was, it was like, that need itself went away and you have made your invention, right? So at that stage, what you could do, you could consider with all your team, you should have a good team of people of, one person from the BD, one from regulatory, one from IP. You should have such kind of a committee where each brings expertise of their area. And every time you should brainstorm. And when you like you consider that is there going to be a future market for this or not, and in case you realize that yes there would be, then either you hold on to your invention or you out license it to someone who's willing to take it at that time, or else hold. So this is basically a sort of a flow chart in exactly what would happen when you begin to innovate. Either you will have a technology in-house, so you will in-license. Sometimes you will invent and be successful. Sometimes you will invent and the market need will go away. Then what you should do. So just a short nutshell about your ideation till reaching the market and filing IP particularly, patents particularly. Okay. I think it got, is it hung? Okay. Yeah. Okay. So just to give you a feel about India, just in a couple of minutes, basically, I think you all know that from 1970 to 2005, we had only process regime. India was considered to be developing, right? So India did not want people to have patents on products, drug products, say, APIs per se, by which the patent owners can price it at any amounts. So they didn't want that. So they had only a process regime. Fine. But we had to join the WTO GATT agreement. We had to become part of, world trade. And for that, there was need to comply with the TRIPS agreement. And for that, from 95, it was decided that in India, from 95 till 2005, for these 10 years, product patent applications will be accepted by the patent office, but the examination and grant will happen only after 2005. So in this period of 95 to 2005, all those patent application for products, when I say products, I'm talking APIs, formulations per se, they were taken, they were accepted and just kept for examination after 2005. They were called as mailbox application. Okay. Then you will say, then how come, what happened, aren't people, those who are submitting those product applications, are they not losing the patent time? Yes, but they were given something called exclusive marketing rights, where they had a right to sell the product alone with a certain pricing which they could decide. So they had EMR system at that time during those 10 years. And after 2005, 1st January, the patents regime it was changed that not only process patents, but also product patents started getting granted, right? So this is the regime in India, just an idea what we went through in the past and where we are currently. Okay, so now you have patents for products as well as processes. Up to 2005, it was only processes. Okay.
Very
Yeah. Any questions? Okay. Further, even when you're deciding on your inventions and innovations and when you want to look for patents, it is good to keep a few things in mind, which is that whatever you want to do may not be patentable in all the jurisdictions. Okay, it may certainly not be patentable in all jurisdictions. Okay, so you got to look at it from the point of view of which country you are planning to have your patent. Okay, for example, suppose now I have thought about, I've developed an assay. You must be doing that. In pharmaceutical domain, it's very common to develop assays and methods. Well, if you think that let me go and have a patent application in India, it won't be permitted. India will not allow patents for surgical processes, for assays, for curative methods, for diagnostic methods, they will not grant. In fact, certain extent, even Europe will not grant. You may get some amount of, patent coverage, you could get it in US, in the United States. You may not get it in India. So you got to think about what you are patenting versus the country where you intend to have a patent, right? Same way, agricultural methods, they are not patentable. Traditional knowledge is not patentable. In fact, CSIR actually went ahead and made the turmeric patent and the basmati rice patent, which was taken in the United States, they have made it to be revoked because this was knowledge that existed since ancient times in India. And patent cannot be granted in any country for that. That was a known knowledge, right? So traditional knowledge is not patentable. And suppose I take two things and mix it together. Suppose I know that metformin is meant for diabetes and say dapagliflozin is meant for diabetes. So can I take the two and mix it together and get a admixture and give it and try to get a patent application? No. Remember, a mere admixture will not get a patent application, but it should have a synergism. Synergistic property should be there. You should get a effect higher than the individual effects. All right. So I'm looking at this slide mainly from the pharmaceutical point of view, from your point of view. When you consider any innovation, whether it will be patentable or not, you got to have a forethought before you begin. And particularly in reference to which country you intend to do it in. Right? The most important section from the pharmaceutical domain is section 3D, wherein if it is a known substance and just a new form, for example, there is an acid known in the prior art and you are making an ester of it. Will that withstand a patent? No, it won't. Because what is requirement in section 3D is if it is to be patentable, any new form of a known substance, it needs to be patented, you should get an enhancement in clinical efficacy. Not that you will say, I am having more solubility or I am having more bioavailability. That will not do. What you need is efficacy in disease curing. In the disease, what is the improvement that you're getting? That is what they will consider, not bioavailable more or more soluble more. No, it is not. The property is not of any changing. The property will not stand good. What it will withstand is improvement in clinical efficacy only. Enhancement of known efficacy of that substance is what is needed to set aside section 3D to get a patent application granted. Okay. So with this in mind, in India, if suppose now, do you know what a polymorph is? It is a different crystalline form. Amorphous form, crystalline, alpha form, beta form. There are crystal forms. When you do crystallization, it comes out in different crystal shapes, right? That is called polymorphism, depending on the solvent and the temperature and the mode of crystallization. You may land up with different polymorph of the API. These are patentable in the United States, Europe, everywhere else. But they are not patentable in India because India considers polymorph to be a modified version of parent API only. So you do not get patents on polymorphs in India, right? Although there is a lot of inventiveness that goes into it, but unless you can show a great clinical efficacy, you're not going to get a patent on any modified form of the known substance. So polymorph, suppose you land up in your innovation process, you have found a polymorph of an existing API. You should not consider trying to get IP in India because it's not, mostly you won't get it. So you look for the jurisdiction which allows this kind of patents, right? Like US, Europe, most of the other countries they do, but not in India. So this is what I meant by jurisdiction wise limitations you got to see. If there is a method of treatment, you have found a method of treatment Do not go to the Europe. They will not grant you. You got to put a different kind of language altogether for that. India will not grant you. You would get it in the United States. So subject matter versus jurisdiction also you got to know where your innovation will withstand a patent application. Okay. What is the meaning of infringement? If someone trespasses into your property, you call it trespassing. If someone is stealing the claim from your patent, is doing the same thing what your claim is telling, that is called infringement. So infringement in intellectual property rights is equal to trespassing in property, right? And infringement can be of a product patent, it can be of a process patent. Process patent infringement means someone is making a product by the process for which you have a patent, right? That is the infringement of a process patent. And for infringement, for you to get your enforcement of your claim of your patent right, then you have to sue that. You have to yourself sue. The system will not do it for you. Remember, having a patent does not mean that that's it. You have to enforce your right. In the sense, you have to be watchful in the market. If someone is copying your invention, someone is stealing your invention, someone is doing same thing what you're doing, someone has stolen your market share, you got to sue that particular third party in a court of law, right? You got to take that action first. Then it is decided that yes, he is infringing. Then you ought to make your account. What is the account that you feel? You demand an account of his profits and say this all he has to give it to me because he used my invention, or damages 3 times because he willfully used my invention, right? But when can I do all this? I can sue only after grant of my patent, not during the pendency of the application. But you know that when a patent is application is filed, after 18 months, it is published. Doesn't mean it is granted. It is published. It comes in public domain. And then it goes further and you get a grant. You may get a grant, right? Subject to all the prosecution and with your kind of arguments with the examiner. So once it is granted, then you can enforce your right. But yes, you can predate all your damages to the date of the actually when he started selling post your publication. So you can predate the damages. That is, profit has to be given to you from the date when post your publication, when he started that particular activity of infringement. But the when can you do all this? You can do it only post grant. Okay. Yes, this is again an extremely important slide for all of you. The examples of the innovations that can be possible. The first, what are the possible innovations for which you can think about IP components early? Okay. First is based on a problem solution approach. As I said, the tablet made into a syrup, right? Or too many tablets, so I change the dose. Or the patient is having problem in the compliance, the taste is so bad, so you make it better, palatable. Or the patient just cannot get up in the middle of the night and take the tablet, so you give a solution of extended release. So this kind of innovations you could possibly think about early, depending on the market need, right? So this is the first type. Second one, very important one. I think you're aware that when an invention happens in respect of a drug, right? It is first called as a new chemical entity because it is not existing anywhere. Then it goes into IND, IND filing, investigational new drug. It is filed, right? I'm talking from the US perspective, from the US point of view, USA. And then you do clinical trial. Then it becomes successful. And then the FDA gives its approval. And that time, that is called as a new drug application. NDA, right? At that time, it is called NDA. Now, because of all the hard work, from the date of approval, FDA gives 5 years marketing exclusivity. It is called NCE exclusivity, during which no generic can come in the market during those 5 years, right? And there is a patent which is independently also existing for that, right? But suppose at the NC minus 1 date, when I talk about NC minus 1, let me give you an example. Today is 28th of January 2021. Suppose today was the date the NCE is expiring for any product, say X, product X. So NC minus 1 date will be 28th of January 2020, 1 year ago, right? That is the NC minus 1 date. So there is a provision, okay, it's called Hatch-Waxman Act. There is a provision for a generic who wants to develop a generic version of that. At the NC minus 1 date, he has to file his application, which is now called as abbreviated new drug application, ANDA. He will file before FDA. And he has to give certifications. So at the NC minus 1 date, if he gives what is called as a paragraph 4 certification, meaning that he will be doing something non-infringing to existing patent, or he is going to prove that patent to be invalid, right? And then there will be a litigation which will start, right? And then he can go into the market much before the patent actually expires. So this is another opening for those in the pharmaceutical space looking at ANDA approach. Target NC minus 1 for para 4s. For para 1s, 2s and 3s, it will have to be only at the end of the NCE, not at NC minus 1. You do not file the other types of paragraph. Paragraph 4 is very special. Now, why was I touching on paragraph 4 is when you are going to do something non-infringing, going to do a different route of what is existing in the patent, you may have an opportunity to have some patent yourself there. So by doing an ANDA where you are going to have same bioequivalence, same therapeutic efficacy, same, just like that innovator's product, right? That's why it's an ANDA. But you're going to replace some component, you're going to do something else by which you're not falling in the claim. You can have a patent for yourself. So there is an IP opportunity there. So that is where, otherwise an ANDA is just a copy, right? If it is anything else, para 1, 2, 3, it is a copy. But when it is para 4, you may do a variation. Then you can think about a possible filing of a patent application in ANDA. And the other is, you may develop an NDA, like instead of a tablet, you're developing a syrup or you're developing a different dose. So that it will not qualify as an ANDA in that case. It's not a complete copycat, right? In that case, it is a new drug application itself. It's another, right? Supplementary ANDA. In that case, again, you have very great opportunities to file IP, to file patent application. So based on having either an ANDA approach or an NDA approach, you can have your IP, and that you can plan early. When you're planning this, you can plan your IP for it. Then the third thing is based on a DMF approach. Now DMF is what? Drug Master Files. When is this filed? It is filed for APIs, right? ANDAs are for formulations. DMFs are for APIs, right? Now the Drug Master File approach is, you see, everybody is preparing, say, imatinib mesylate. Everybody is making imatinib mesylate. You think, why don't I make imatinib becylate, a different salt, right? So you want to start selling a different salt. So you can develop a DMF, get it audited by the FDA. your site and everything, and then you can become a vendor or a provider for a API salt, different salt or a different polymorph, which the others are not selling. Yes, of course, you should study the market demand and all for it. Just not possible that you sell a different salt and you would have a customer. But this is again an approach of developing other salts and developing polymers. So what I'm trying to tell you is innovations can be these types where you can target not only doing something, but you can also have your IP associated with that, right? Based on process development, you can design processes, different processes for making APIs. You can have process patents on that, right? Based on platform technology. Do you know what a platform technology is? Platform technology, let me give you an example. Suppose I have a formulation in which the drug component is A, and then I'm doing certain things and I'm making a very different type of formulation. If I just patent only that much, okay, somebody will just remove A and put B and C and use your entire formulation there, right? And your actually your technology is lost with different. So here you need to be careful. You should file IP, patent applications, in which you try to get a claim for the technology per se, and then you should say that, in place of the drug substance you can have A, B, C. You should name all the drugs. These are all possible to fit into my technology. So you should have such kind of broad IP. So that's another aspect that you need to think early, that is this technology only for this specific drug, or is it extendable to many more? If it is extendable to many more, you should file your patent application accordingly, right? Then if you have a new application of a drug, you find that a drug which you are doing for, say, oral cancer is suddenly finding use in, say, polycystic kidney disorder. So it is a new application that you find, right? But will that be patentable in India? No. In India, second uses are not patentable. They do not grant you patents for second uses. So you have to look jurisdiction wise where it is allowed. Our assays and methods, they could be patentable in the United States. Are they patentable in India? No. So the subject matter, the jurisdiction, your stage of innovation, all three things you need to consider. Now, based on future patent expiry approach, I will show you the next slide for this one. Based on herbal innovations, yes, suppose you have come to know that a specific herbal component A is useful for, say, diabetes, and B is based also useful for diabetes. You could consider mixing them, making nutritional supplements, and if you have a synergistic effect, you could have a patent application on it, right? You could even consider that I'm only going to do innovation on rare diseases. You know what are rare diseases? Orphan drugs, orphan diseases. That is 1 in 10,000. The definition varies from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. But there are very few people who target this because maybe it's not going to affect so much of a population. But then you could target this and become an expert. You could become, a leader in orphan drugs. So these are some of the examples of different types of innovations that you could possibly think about early, and then plan accordingly and file the necessary IP at the apt stage. I wouldn't say early, but apt time, not late, not early, but the correct time. Now, this kind of data you will get from any database like Cortellis. So which product is going off patent in which year? So I have taken the next 5 years, okay? There are 16 products which are going off patent, means the product patent is getting expired in 22. So if I wanted to work on any of these 16, I should have started 5 years back, which many would have done. So if I want to start work on some product, I want to become an ANDA or an NDA for some product which is in the future going. So I should preferably take those of 26 and 27 because I will need that time to develop on my drug, right? Even if it is an ANDA, I will need time. And if it's an NDA, of course, definitely there's certain amount of clinical will also be required. So I need time. So ideally, about 5 years before, if you start your R&D development work, it is okay. Now you will tell me that if a product is under patent, how can I develop it? Am I not infringing in that case if it is under patent? No, R&D work is exempted. It doesn't come under the uh, title of infringement, right? It's called Bowler exception. You can basically do R&D work. You can even sell for R&D purpose, provided the customer gives you a declaration that I am going to use it only for my research and development work. I am not commercializing anything now. I am just going to work and experiment and do things with it. So that is allowed. So you can work 5 years before a patent expires and get ready that when it expires, you're ready with your product to hit the market as a generic or as a NDA, as a alternate dosage form, right? So this is how you can think with respect to selection of product for development in the future. So this is again one type of innovation that you can plan, right? And where to file, as I said, you should consider jurisdiction where this technology will work, whether cost you have to consider, and where it will work, and where the patent will be granted for this type of product, right? Now let us quickly, I think I'm running a little late, but maybe I'll go very fast and show you example because now all the basics are clear to you. You can just quickly see how a company built on their patent portfolio, maybe about 10 minutes more. Is that okay, Dr. Aishwarya, Dr. Vandana? Is it fine?
Yeah, it's okay. You can just take another 10 minutes and then we can stop. Yeah.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. So these are all the different types of the pharmaceutical patents, okay? Method of use, drug delivery. These are all the simple types of it which are available. And this is the scope of protection as to which is the strongest. The drug substance and method of use is the strongest, and it is very difficult to do something and be non-infringing to those. Process is very easy to circumvent. Okay, you can always replace reagents and process you can come out, but not the substance patent. Now, this is just telling you about a Markush. I think you're familiar with Markush, then we can just go to the next slide. I'm sure you would be, right? Markush structures are these kind of generalized structures where with different groups put in R1, R2, you can actually cover many compounds with one structure, right? This is example of a Markush structure. Now, see, rosiglitazone, a diabetic drug, initially they had this kind of Markush structure, right? This kind of Markush structure, you're seeing, this is what they have done, the first early innovation. Many compounds they have studied, structure activity relation was studied, and they filed this kind of patent application. Then they identified the lead candidates, say 2-3 years down the line. And then they took a separate selection patent for the specific compound. So see how early innovation, then they went to get the specific patent. Now this patent will expire 2 years after the first one, say. So they got that extra time of 2 years, correct? Then they went in for process patent. This is little more later. So they get little more extra time in patent. So this is how they are keeping their monopoly on in some limited way. Definitely what strength for the Markush was there or for the second one, that much. This one is not so strong, but still it gives some amount of a protection in the market that nobody will use this process to make it. Then they have combined rosiglitazone and metformin and took for combination patent. So although this is restricted to only this combination, but then again, this is giving them that kind of extra protection. For some years after those earlier ones expire, this will still have some time of patent life. This is only called evergreening, which they track. And not, it is basically planning your patent applications at the correct time in the process of innovation. Then they have made a non-aqueous aerosol formulation, alternate formulation. This is done by a different company. That's also possible. That is not that everything will be done by same company. Another case study, say lurasidone, which is used for schizophrenia, mental disorders. Look at this patent, which was filed in 1993. This is the Marcus structure, identified so early. So many hundreds of compounds are there in this particular patent. This is drug substance patent. Then what they did, they created a formulation in which they have put pre-gelatinized starch, right? And pre-gelatinized starch in the range of 20 to 50% weight by weight they used to create this tablet. When did they file it? 2006. Earlier one was 1993. They took time, developed this and filed. Now from here you will have 20-year term. So 93 will end in 2013 or something, but this will go further, the expiry. So they got that extra time of patent protection. So monopoly in the market. Then what they had done, look at this. This filing date is 2014, but it is just continuation of earlier. So it still expires on the same day. You can't, they have to put terminal disclaimer and get it expired on same day. But what they did, last patent was 20 to 50. Here they have 20 to 30, another patent. So what will happen? Generic will say 20 to 50, 20 to 30, let me make with 10% or 15%. So he will think I am non-infringing. Then what will happen? This patent will come, filed in 2014. They have claimed 10 to 50. So generic who did with 15% development, his whole development he has to stop because he will infringe this patent. So he will say, okay, fine, I will redo all my work and go from 8%. 8% or something, I will start the pre-gelatinized starch. He will go and start that development, right? Then they will come with another patent in 2015. Every time after filing date, after 18 days from 18 months from priority date, it will get published. Then only people will know about it. So it will suddenly this will get published. And then you will see here, there is no restriction only on PGS. Matlab, if you put even one bit of PGS, pre-gelatinized starch, if you are using, you will infringe this patent. So the generic will be troubled by these patent applications. This is how innovator is extending his patent life and monopoly. At the same time, he's putting roadblocks for the generic development. The generic has to redevelop. Either he has to challenge this patent and prove it invalid, or else he has to do all his development again without the use of pre-gelatinized starch. At the same time, he should meet the bioequivalence criteria. So this is something so nice. See how they have done from 93. Early, they have identified the structure, activity relationship, then went on, and how they went on extending the patent life. So this one will extend so much more than this. So this is how they have at apt time filing patent applications and building on their innovation process. With one same tablet, different dosage, they have, see the way they have built up this. Another example, dapagliflozin. See this in 2000, they have identified a Marcus structure, right? And later on, they have filed for the specific structure, dapagliflozin. So Marcus to specific. Then they found a specific polymorph, a specific crystalline form, which they filed in 7. So this is going till 29. See, the initial patent, if you see, it was going in 20. That is, it got expired. But now this is the one which is actually causing the anti-diabetic effect. It's going in 29. See where they have identified it, and then they immediately filed a patent application. So this is now blocking everybody till 29, which is really distant. So nobody can make this. This is a composition containing this. It's going early in 27. The earlier patent got extension. That is why it went in 29. But as long as that earlier patent is there, 29, you can't even do this. Right? This is a method of treatment. See, it went in 2030. See how they have filed at different points. Look at the next slide. Different points they have filed, and these are the expiries. And they have got a market monopoly till 2030 by starting early from in the whole process of innovation. Another example, which is quite old example, this is the 1994 Zimmerman patent, Novartis for Glivec, which they had filed. They didn't file this in India because India didn't have product patents that time. This expired in 2013. Then they came with a polymorph, that is a beta form, which was refused patent in India because it was not giving increased efficacy in terms of clinical efficacy. It was only bioavailable more than 30%. So that is not the way to measure your section 3D. It does not qualify. So this didn't get a patent in India, but it got a patent in United States. But anyway, look at the way at 98, they identified this. This went last year, I mean, the year before last, 2019. Again, similarly, they have taken a method of treatment. They have done it in 2001 and it's going to expire in 22 by some new indication they have taken. The earlier indication was for chronic myeloid leukemia, CML. Now it is for gastrointestinal stromal tumors. At least for another indication, they got extension. So they have some amount of market monopoly there because of their patents. That's the use of having IPs. Similarly, this is as a combination with another product. With two products, they are mixed to imatinib and they are getting this. They are getting an extension till 2025. See the patent monopoly they are getting, right? So this is the way they have started at 2013 and they're extending their whole, this is the patent expiry. So the first patent is expired in 13, but then by repeatedly filing the IP at the regular stages of innovation, they were able to extend their monopoly in some way, maybe in a limited way, but till 2025. So this is what I wanted to convey to all of you, that creating your IP at the right time, in the right jurisdiction, at the right stage of innovation, you could think of what all those factors. I know it is a very vast concept, but I tried my best to do justice to it. And that's how you can convert your knowledge into wealth and try to get social good. So with that, I end my talk. Thank you so much for all your attention. You can ask me any questions. Over to you.
Thank you, ma'am,
Yeah,
for
thank you.
delivering such a wise talk.
Are there
Ma'am,
any
I have
questions?
one question. Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Yeah, Radha, just go ahead.
Ma'am, if I have developed any prototype and I have patent in India, but I
Okay.
want to get in XYZ foreign countries. So, will Indian patent work there, or I have to file special
You have to
separate
file a separate one.
patents in
Yes.
that respective countries?
Yes. Your patent right is restricted to the territory where you have filed your patent application only. Okay. Also, if suppose today you filed your patent application in India, at any future time you cannot go to any other country. Within 1 year, you have to go to the other countries also. Right? There is a time limit within which you can extend your invention which you've done in India to other countries. Otherwise, your invention, your own patent application will be cited against you as prior art. So it will your invention other country will not qualify for a patent there because you already did it in not within the stipulated timeline. Right?
Thank you, ma'am.
Um, Hello, I have just
Yes.
one short question. What is about the GI tag? Like, if I have a GI tag for particular crop, then it is valid for any other countries then? Like,
No. That's also
no.
everything is for India only. National
Okay.
legislation.
National
Yeah.
registration. Okay.
GI is applicable for a period of 10 years and renewable. You can go on renewing. Generally,
Renewing.
GI is done by some trust. It's
Okay.
not done by an individual, right? Where you give
Individuals.
say Tirupati laddu or something like that. Say
Okay. Okay.
saris from Mysore, that way. Alfonso
Mysore. Okay.
mangoes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyone has any question? Please ask.
Ma'am, how do we know about other people working on the same type of developing
Okay.
the same similar kind of product?
Okay. So one is that generally when anyone files any patent application, right, you will know that only 18 months from the priority date. it will come in public domain. It will appear in all your public databases of patents or even your paid databases. You will be able to see that. If you search with your technology area, it will retrieve those. So you will come to know that they are working. So generally in the starting, you may not know the first 18 months when they begin, you may not know immediately. When their things get published, then you will come to know that, okay, they were working on this generally. Of course, there is a leakage of information and then you come to know. That's off the records. Like sometimes you get to know that this is what, say, company X is working on. Like somebody maybe joined your company from there and tells you this. But that's generally not the right way. The legitimate way is basically you see a publication of that company and you know that, yes, they are working on this.
Thank you, ma'am. So, ma'am, if we have been working, if we have already started working on the same thing, then what do we do? We try to change ours in a way that doesn't like become the same as what they would probably produce, like the product.
Yeah, you will have to modify something because you will not going to get that patent, right? It's already gone to someone else. And even if, see, there are two things. One is, if you want to do it, just carry it out in the market. You don't need a patent application to support you. Your patent is more for your protection. It is for protecting your rights that nobody else copies or somebody else doesn't do and then keeps you out of doing your own thing. So it is more for your protection. But you can always sell without a patent application, provided others also copy, you're okay with it, you can do it, right? So to do something in a country where they don't have a patent, you don't need to have a patent yourself. You can always go in countries where they didn't file and do your carry it out there, right? That's one thing. Another thing is to get a patent application for what you have done. If it's already, if they have filed a patent application, unless you have some inventive step more above, over and above what they are disclosing, you're not going to basically get a patent application granted, right? That will be always cited against you. So you got to change something. You got to make it innovative, not just something. It should stand out as a distinct advantage. You should be able to defend your case before the examiner later that what I am doing is this and what they are doing is this, and there is a clear difference. You should be able to be do that. Then you will get it granted. You can always file, but will it get a grant or not is what you need to think. That is when you will have to defend your case before an examiner in terms of novelty, the inventive step, utility, in all these ways.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, it was a very informative presentation.
Thank
Ma'am,
you
once
so much.
we file, is it possible to like modify from the filed application
Yes, yes. Yes,
the
Asha.
same
Actually,
one?
when you file a provisional initially, right, that never comes in public domain. By doing that, you're only getting a priority date, but you should have some degree of proof of concept there, right? It's not that you have to have your invention whole and soul done completely. To certain extent, it should be workable. That you file a provisional. That never comes in public domain, but it gives you your priority date. Within 1 year, you have to make it complete, and that complete will get published later, right? So for that complete, you need to complete all your work, experiments, and all. So it can be that what information you're putting in the complete may be far, far more than what you put in the provisional. So you are definitely changing on it a lot from provisional to complete. But from complete onwards, you can't really change it unless you file what is called as a patent of edition or you do a divisional, things like that. In US, you have a provision called continuation application where there is a marginal difference which didn't go into this, but still it falls within the scope of this patent. So you do what is called as a continuation or a continuation in part patent, right? So some countries have that. You have it in Europe also. Here in India, you have patent of edition, but that will it will expire on the same day as the patent for which you have done this continuation. It won't get extra term.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, for a life sciences student to come into this IPR field, What would we need to do? Do we have to do a course on IPR?
See, as long as you know your subject well, as long as you know what IPR is, even without a course, it is okay. But yes, when you go like formally, officially, when people will look at your CV first, right? And then they will examine you in an interview. So it's sad that it's not the other way, that they call you directly for an interview. So to get called to an interview, you will need some qualification to that extent in your CV, right? So it's good to do a course. There are many courses. There are diploma courses available for uh, the patent line, the IP line. You have courses available from WIPO, WIPO. They are online courses. You can do those. You can get certificates in them. You have it in Mumbai University has started from some years now. You have it from Nalsar, that is distance learning. You can have many are there, in fact, and you can also do a full-fledged law course, LLB, and then specialize in LLM if you wish in IP. You can do that as well. There is a patent agent examination which is conducted every year. It is to be conducted now in the next couple of months or so. So that is an examination which you are tested in terms of your knowledge, in terms of sections and everything, the law, existing law, and also there is a viva. And once you clear that, you become a registered patent agent in the country. You have a number, you have a license to practice. So you can actually represent anyone and file their patent applications for them, or you can, prosecute them, get the grants. You can do all the work for someone that way. That is if you're independent, or if you can also, like me, like get affiliated with some company, become a regular employee, and do the work of only that company. Whereas as a registered patent agent, you may do for several clients, right?
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
Check it
Yeah.
out.
Yeah. Thank you, Shridevi. Actually, it was very informative session, and lot of things were not known to us. So you have taken your time and really given good informative session to all of us. Radha,
Thank you, Dr.
Radha.
Radhika.
Hmm.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Over
Can
the
you
last
proceed?
session, it's a bit of a thanks. Firstly, I take this occurrence to extend my warm thanks to Honorable Professor M.N. Navle Sir, Founder, President, Sinhagat Technical Education Society, Dr. Mrs. Sunanda Navle Ma'am, Founder, Secretary, STES, Mr. Rohit Navle Sir, Vice President, STES, Mrs. Rachna Navle Ashtekar Ma'am, Vice President Admin STES, and Professor S.N. Navle Sir, Vice President STES Kondwa Campus, for providing platform to conduct such activity. I would like to thank our principal Dr. S.D. Savant Sir, without whom support program would be impossible. I want to extend my generous thanks to Mrs. Sridevi Krishnan Ma'am for sparing her valuable time despite her busy schedule. I would also like to extend my thanks towards Dr. Vandana Nikam Ma'am, convener IIC SKN COP, Dr. Aishwarya Devi Deshmukh Ma'am, IPR activator IIC SKN COP, for organizing today's webinar. I would like to thank our teaching staff as well as the students without whom such participation program would be incomplete. Thank you once again. Thank you, Sridevi ma'am, for your wise talk.
And let me thank everybody for this wonderful opportunity. I've enjoyed every moment, and I hope whatever I have been able to convey, I hope it adds more value to what you already knew. And nice to be affiliated with all of you, and hope we can be in touch again
Yeah. Yeah.
sometime.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. So,
Thank
can
you
we
all.
discuss? Yeah, thanks a lot,
Thank,
Sridevi.
yeah,
And I think we can end the meeting now. Yeah, thanks.
thank you. Thank you. Take care. Yeah. Bye.
Yeah, bye. Bye.